All right, let's take them in order from left to right. And let's see what these guys get on Interbellum. And hopefully we'll get to play this at some point. Just heads up, if for anyone the music is too loud, let me know, because it should be very, very light on the background. But it helps me when I do this kind of shows to have some music. All right, Pyromancer, Explosion and Blast. Passive. Explosion stacks up to 100 and you will gain 8% outgoing damage when above 89. Explosion deals 21% spell attack power and 280 elemental damage to you whenever you gain combustion that takes you above 100. It has 1 second internal cooldown. So the mechanism seems the same as the Bright Wizard we know from live, but you only start taking damage once you're above 100. So all the way up there, you shouldn't get any damage. Blast is a debuff that lasts for 4 seconds and stacks 10 times. At the end of the duration, target takes 8% spell attack power and 90 elemental damage per stack. If I'm not mistaken, on live, because I've never actually played a Bright Wizard, may level 1 a little bit, but it's random when you get damage as you use your abilities. This one says that you take damage above 89, so it's a guarantee you'll be taking damage above 89. Pyroclastic Surge. No cost, no cooldown. Basic attack. Deals 6% spell attack power, 133 corporeal damage to the target. You generate 40 action points and 5 combustion. So that's your spammable for 6% attack power and 133. 40 action points, so you can build those, and 5 combustion. So 5. So you need about 20 spells to hit 100. I'm sure there's other spells, right? This is the no mana cost one. Fireball. 3-second cast time. 36 action points. So you can still do a Pyroclastic Surge along the Fireball and still be on +4 combustion. Sorry, +4 action points. So Fireball deals 52% attack power, so half your spell power deals damage, plus 716 elemental damage to target, and you generate 10 combustion. All right, it makes sense. 3 seconds cast time, not moving. I think it's not moving. It's worth it. Oh, great. We've got ads coming up. Withered Heart, no cost, no cooldown, consumes all combustion. You gain a buff for 10 seconds. For the duration, you will gain sagacity based on combustion consumed. In addition, each skill you cast will deal explosion damage to you. Oh. 25 combustion, 10%, 50%, 50 combustion, 30, 75, 60, 100, 100%. So for the next 10 seconds, you may be dealing 100% more damage, but you're also getting damage. You know what? I need to hold on a second, because I know we're gonna have this problem, and I just thought about it. So bear with me, please. Hold on a second, because we're gonna need this. I just need to find it. Sorry about this. I should have thought of this a little bit earlier, but where do I have this? I think it's that one. No. What I'm trying to find, so you guys know what I'm looking for. All right, that's the one I want. So you're gonna gain sagacity, reduces enemy corporeal, elemental, and spiritual resistance. That's why, because they're still not familiar with the terms yet. So when you use all your combustion points, you gain a 10-second buff. So for 10 seconds, you will gain a buff that reduces elemental resistances based on how much combustion you have. In addition, every skill will deal explosion damage to you. Okay, so sagacity is reduces enemy corporeal, elemental, and spiritual damage. So your damage will go up because you reduce their resistances. Ads. We gotta love the ads. All right, so this is your removal, your combustion removal, and you remove the enemy's resistances. Unquenchable Fury, 100 action points. Apply a blessing to yourself for 60 seconds. Whenever you deal direct damage to a target, you will apply blast to them and yourself. Blast. you will apply blast to them. All right, we'll find. I'm trying to see what blast is. We'll find it along the way. Firecades applies rooted and immovable to target enemy, so they can move for 5 seconds, and that's the debuff. So that's the typical Bright Wizard. What's the word for it? Root, escape mechanism. Ignite applies an alignment to target enemy for 15 seconds. You generate 3 combustion, and the target takes 8% spell attack power and 100 elemental damage every 3 seconds. Cannot be applied to targets under the effect of detonate. Meltdown, 20 combustion points, deals 20%, 22% spell attack power, 283 corporeal damage to the target. So you don't need action points for that. Smoke screen. Target enemy deals 50% less damage to you for 15 seconds. This effect is removed if you hit the target with the ability, with a ability. Detaunt. Okay, so that's the default skills you get as a Bright Wizard Pyromancer. Let's see the default tactics that you start with. Whenever you use a basic attack, all group mates within 100 feet of you with this tactic gain 300 absorb for 3 seconds. By the way, these are racial ones, so I'm assuming we're going to see this across the entire empire. So anytime you use a basic attack, you give 300 absorb shields for 3 seconds to everybody in your group. Sigmar's favorite. Whenever you receive a direct heal, you will also be healed for 120 plus 8% wounds. Nice. Embrace the Flames. Unquenchable Fury is now applied to all group mates within 100 feet of you. Unquenchable Thirst is that one. So apply a blessing to yourself for 60 seconds. Whenever you deal direct damage to a target, you will apply blast to them. So this is applied to all group mates with 100 feet. Does that mean that you put blast on them, or whenever they deal direct damage to a target, they apply blast? I'm assuming is that one, that your group mates apply blast as well. I'm assuming. Aquestus Aegis. Explosion and blast now deal 50% less damage to you and your group mates. So you actually apply this to your group mates, and then with this one, you do 50% less damage. Pyromancers equip staffs. Disengage, you knock yourself back away from target enemies. So Bright Wizards now get Disengage. It's a skill that pushes you backwards, like the Squig if you played it, or the Shadow Warrior. So now they have a little bit more CC. They have a Root and a Disengage. Focus Mind, that's Morale 2. That's called Adrenaline. You gain a buff for 15 seconds. Abilities will have 50% faster cast time, and you will have 100% pushback immunity. Explosive Impact, Morale 3. You gain a buff for 10 seconds. Whenever you hit a target with a single target ability, you will deal 10% range attack power, 150 corporeal damage, and 10% spell attack power, and 150 elemental damage, up to 24 enemies within 20 feet of the target. All right. So this is a combination of range attack power and spell attack power, plus elemental damage and corporeal damage, to 24 enemies within 20 feet of the target. So you select somebody and you deal damage around them. I don't know if you can fit 24 people in 20 feet, but I suppose, let's say you hit as many as you can in that area. Unleash the Winds, up to 96 enemies with a 20 feet location you select are knocked straight up in the air. That's a Morale 4. Suppose that is a massive interrupt. Also, you can consider this, besides the interrupt, is going to fly up. I suppose you can consider that a root, because they're not going to move. They're just going to go up and down. That would probably, because I don't know everything, but if in Interbellum the 3-second collision rule still applies, knocking them up should actually reset that. So you can really create a nice body wall for people not to get through. Now we're going to the skills we can actually pick as a Pyromancer. Red Tide, passive. Pyroclastic Surge now deals 50% additional damage. So 50%, so from 6 to 9% stop. Okay, I'm just gonna put some points here so we can move down some other skills. Then, as we've seen on the other classes before, we have here stats. You can pick toughness, initiative, weapon, skill, willpower. The middle one is usually skill, explosive action. Whenever you take explosion damage, you will gain 6 action points. Don't forget, you are going to be getting explosion damage due to the mechanic. So that's going to be happening. Ballistic skill and intelligence, strength, farsight, career tactic. Your range is increased by 20%. Okay. So 20%, it becomes 120 feet. Don't need any strength. Seer. 75 action points, 100 feet range, steals 25% spell attack power, 335 elemental damage to target, and applies a stack of blast. You will take explosion damage and gain 5 combustion. Okay, and that can be upgraded to... Seer now applies 3 stacks of blast. What I'm looking for. Because to be honest with you, I've been reading this, but I'm trying to find... we apply this buff called blast, right? We keep applying it. Plus the debuff that lasts for 4 seconds and stacks 10 times. At the end of the duration, target takes 8% spell attack power and 90 elemental damage per second. So that works passively. Okay. That's what I was looking at, thinking, like, what exactly is blast? So it's a debuff. So this can apply up to 3 stacks. And after 4 seconds, they take 8% damage plus 90. 1 second cast time. We're also getting combustion, and this goes up to... You can upgrade this twice, so that's 6 stacks. Nice. Fast. Melt armor, morale 1. Enemy target gains 4 stacks of reduced armor. Okay, we don't mind having some enemies lose their armor. Next line, more tactics. Fire of battle. You gain 50% pushback immunity, but the cast time of Pyroclastic Surge and Shear is increased by 0.25 seconds. Critical mass. Whenever you cast an ability, you will gain 8% critical chance for 5 seconds. This stacks until you deal a critical hit, at which point all stacks are removed. Oh. That's a nice tactic. I mean, you keep casting, it goes up, it goes up, it goes up. You do a critical, it goes down. You keep building it. So you pretty much guarantee the critical every, I don't know, couple of spells, depending how much critical you're going to have as well. Agility, playing with fire. Applies an alignment to the target for 10 seconds. Whenever the target is healed, you will deal 13% spell attack power and 183 elemental damage to the healer, and you generate 5 combustion. Well, this is not exactly a healing debuff, but I like that. Because you're going to apply this, let's say, to a tank. The healer is going to heal the tank, which is really far away. You can't get him, right? So the healer is healing the tank, but you are actually damaging the backline. So with this, you don't physically have to get to the backline. So the healer is going to have to either stop healing the guy at the front, which is getting massive damage, to heal himself, or just keep spamming AoEs. But as we know so far, just sitting at the backline spamming AoE is not something that's going to be viable for too long on the Interbellum server. You have to switch around and move around, whether you like it or not. Don't forget, a lot of specializations, you have to deal damage to heal, or you have to move around or do things like that. So it's interesting. Now with the Bright Wizard, you can, on the Pyromancer spec, you can apply, you can use playing with fire and deal damage to the healer as they heal the front lines. I find it interesting personally. It changes the gameplay a lot. Hardened casting, you gain 15% pushback immunity, 30%, 50%. Okay, that's good. I mean, there are a couple of spells that take 3 seconds, 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds. So having the pushback, it's only good. So you can level up to 5 stacks of blast. Burnout, morale 2. You gain 100 combustion and take explosion damage. Suppose an instant way of filling your combustion if you need to. Next line, Fury Reserves. Career tactic. Blast will now generate 3 combustion per stack whenever it expires. Ooh. So you apply the debuff, which is going to deal, it stacks up to 10 times and deals 80% sub damage. And with this tactic, you gain 3 combustion per stack. So that could be actually 30 combustion if you have 10 stacks of blast. If you really find them builds to work with a lot of blast and combustion, you can just dot everybody. It's, you know, tab dot, tab dot, tab dot, tab dot, tab for changing targets, that is. And just build the combustion quickly, build the stacks quickly, especially with shear every second, applying up to 5 stacks of blast. And we can see it built there. The cast time of Fireball is reduced by 0.1 seconds, so you can then to half a second down. Fireball is 3, it's going to go down to 2.5. I don't know how useful that might be. Boiling Blood, 40 action points. Applies an alignment to the target for 6 seconds. At the end of the duration, target will take 70% spell attack power and 252 indirect corporeal damage. You generate 5 combustion. Now, I'll pay attention here when it says direct damage and indirect damage. That is very important because one thing that I remember about this is there are a lot of skills that get interrupted. For example, tanks that have defensive capabilities that if they receive direct damage, then that aura, for example, deactivates for 5 seconds. So this, for example, will not deactivate that aura. So it's important, if you're ever going to play on the server when it comes online, to pay attention to the tooltips a lot, because they specify direct, indirect damage, friendly targets, enemy targets, mobility, how many people you need to hit to be effective. They have fairly detailed tooltips, which is refreshing from a lot of even AAA games that don't actually have very good tooltips. So that's Boiling Blood. Boiling Blood can be upgraded to Boiling Blood 2 through 4. Boiling Blood is now an alignment. It was an alignment. Okay. Applies an alignment. Is an alignment. This might be something that might need to look into it, or I understand this wrongly. Anyways, is now an alignment with a 6-second duration that deals elemental damage. Oh, I see what it is. It's a spell. Now it becomes an alignment. It doesn't apply it itself. It's an alignment. I don't know if that makes any difference, but okay. So it becomes let's say a dot that after 6 seconds it deals elemental damage instead of you don't get the combustion generation, all this. I don't know if this is worth it or if it's dealing more damage and you want to go more DPS than that. But that also can lead into rolling boil, which is a tactic. Boiling Blood will prevent the target from gaining stacks of blast for the duration. That's interesting. I mean, you can put that in yourself because you always apply blast to yourself through the skills and the spells you're doing. So this will help you not build a lot of blast, I suppose. So you don't want to blow up yourself. Devouring Flames, another tactic. Whenever you critically hit an enemy, you and the target take explosion damage. Man, I don't know. There's a lot of explosions so far. I mean, you're hurting yourself, you're hurting the enemy. I think you might really need to have a tank with you, or you might really need to have a healer with you with this. But let's move on and see where this is going to go. Next line, Scorching Ignition. Ignite will now apply 1 stack of blast and 1 stack of reduced elemental resistance to the target each time it deals damage. Okay, so you can keep reducing the resistances. Extra crit, you gain the critical hit increase by 2. Another tactic, Flash Fire. Whenever you cast Meltdown, it was somewhere up here, I think. Meltdown deals 22% spell attack power, 283 corporeal damage. Okay, so you use 20 combustion for that. So whenever you cast Meltdown, you will gain 1 stack of enchantment for 8 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. Fireball will have a 40% reduced cast time and remove 1 stack. So, so you can cast Meltdown, you gain 1 enchantment for 8 seconds. Meltdown, so if you have 60 combustion, you can spam it 1, 2, 3, because there's no cost, no cooldown instant. And then you can spam Fireball, because Fireball gets 40% reduced cast time, and you lose 1 stack. So it will go to, what, 50% is 1.5, 1.6 seconds, more or less. Rough maths. And then if you also put the tactic on, that reduces its cooldown by half a second. We've seen it somewhere. Oh, I don't remember. It's somewhere. Oh, here. You put all the 5 points there, you gain another. So you can drop it out to about a second, I think. You can do that and spam that. But you need to have combustion points. Fireball spamming. Possible. And I say possible because you've done actually in the game, gear and see how things are going to work. I'm not making builds here. I'm just, thinking of things we could possibly do. Emperor's Champion, Morale 3. You gain a buff for 20 seconds. For the duration, gain 250 ballistic skill, 250 intelligence, and 250 strength. For 20 seconds. All right. Now, remember, ballistics, we're wondering why, but don't forget, some of the spells require range attack power, and some of them spell attack power. So that will buff you both range through ballistic and spell power through intelligence. And the 250 strength will definitely give you, I think it gives you 50%, so 125 on the rest. So this go about 300 something. Every skill can be used from all, every statistic can be used from all classes, but you get less. So if intelligence gives you 1-to-1, 100 intelligence is 100 spell power. If you also have 100 strength, you'll get like something like 50 spell power extra. So it's not a wasted stat, basically. Since all stats on gear will be randomized, you can still put it on your character if you don't have something better. It's not a complete waste. You still get a benefit from it. Verge of Victory. Whenever you land a killing blow, you will gain 20 adrenaline per second for 8 seconds. Whenever a groupmate with 100 feet lands a killing blow, you will gain 5 adrenaline per second for 8 seconds. So that is a tactic you can use for buffing your morale, wasting a slot. There are classes that buff morale anyway, so don't know how much morale you might want. Final Power. Costs 40 combustion. It's off the global cooldown. You take explosion damage and gain 1 stack of enhanced potency. 1 second, because, like I said, I don't remember all of the thing is. Potency. Your critical hit deals this much more damage. Base is 25, so increases your critical damage. And it's off the global cooldown for 40 combustion, and you can upgrade that. So Final Power will now refund 5 combustion and has a 5% chance to also apply a stack of enhanced critical hit rating. So increases your chances and refunds a little bit of combustion to keep you going. How many points is that? 1 and 4, 5. Ooh, hold on a second. If we just put a couple of points to open that. So you pick that. And you can go up to 20 combustion, refund it. So it cuts the cost down to half. And 50% chance to also apply a stack of enhanced critical hit rating. So you have chance to do critical more often. Burning Head. Morale 4. Summons a Burning Head which charges forward, affecting up to 24 allies and 96 enemies every second with a 3-second effect within 20 feet of its location. Allies gain 50% critical chance and 15 adrenaline per second. Ooh, that's a nice morale buff. Enemies take 10% spell attack power and 150 elemental damage every second and gain 15 adrenaline per second. Well, I'm trying to say, okay, so in a hypothetical siege or funneling, I suppose that is something you can throw there at the front and buff your friendlies, the front line, and debuff the enemies on the front line. Fireball Barrage, 1 point, and we'll run out of points. Man, we're gonna have so much fun with these builds since you can't pick everything up. So, Fireball Barrage 3-second channel deals 18% spell attack power, 227 elemental damage to the target, and up to 2 additional enemies within 20 feet of them every 1.5 seconds. You generate 3 combustion each time this deals damage. So 3, 6, 9 plus the 2 guys. Okay, it's a good combustion build. Damage looks fairly good. Samey AoE. And let's see, this is the so-called Zerg Basting abilities. Let's see which one the Pyromancer gets. It's called Spreading Flames. 2-second cast time is 150 action points. That's pretty much half your action points. So you gotta make sure it actually works. Applies a debuff to the target enemy for 2 seconds. Deals 6%, I'm assuming, spell attack power, and 20 elemental damage every 1 second. So that is damage for 2 seconds. At the end of the duration, applies stage 2 of the debuff to up to 6 other enemies within 20 feet. There are 5 stages. It stacks up to 10 times. So, okay, so it's a spreading one. We've seen this before on Chaos. So you apply that to one guy for 2 seconds, deal damage, blows up, and that affects 6 people 20 feet around him. That's stage 2. 2 seconds, they deal damage for 2 seconds. 2 seconds later, they explode, if you like put it that way, and they affect 6 people 20 feet around them. So if somebody is in range of, let's say, all 6 of them, right, that 7th person is going to get 6 debuffs at the same time, and then he's going to blow up. So he has no limit. I think can affect the maximum is 96 people, so you can keep spreading. 6, you can go 36, 72, how many people around there, and more stacks and more stacks. Also, I've noticed here that I think this is, I could be mistaken, but this is the first Zerg Basting ability that I don't see on the tooltip to say anything about cover. See, the Chosen has exactly the same thing, different type of damage, but it's still the same. So this is the Marauder one. I'm just doing some comparison here. 6 seconds if they do not have cover from you. So the Chosen doesn't seem, this ability that's spreading to people is not affected by cover. I don't see any cover anywhere. So cover means you don't have a tank in front of you holding the line. So if there's a tank at the front holding the line and you're behind it, you have cover. So some of the abilities will not work. So positioning is extremely important. So we have the Pyromancer. We have the Pyromancer here, and it seems to have the typical range mechanism. You cast, you build the mechanic, you take damage above 89. Most of your spells apply blast after 4 seconds. I think it's 4 seconds. Yeah, after 4 seconds, it blows up. It deals spell attack power plus 9 elemental. You can build that. Fireball, you could have a fireball built. You can reduce the casting time. I think that pretty much covered it. Burning Head, debuff, and buff your friendlies in the front lines. It's pretty straightforward because we've played this type of style of Bright Wizard before. I'm just not sure. I think you have to be a little bit more careful because you also apply exploding debuffs to your friendlies, to your allies. So you have to be a little bit more careful there. Possibly deadly, but also should be a lot of pressure on the healers trying to keep you and everybody else you apply explosions on alive. Right, let's go and see the Arsonist now, the second heart specialization. Some of the skills here on the top line, the 2 first lines, remember, is the passive you start with. Some of them are similar, so the explosion and blast mechanism remains the same, as we've seen on the Pyromancer. Sparkling Swing is different. Basic attack deals 4% melee attack power and 30 elemental damage to the target. You generate 22 action points. Well, this one is spell attack power in the spell, so the Arsonist seems like we're going to a melee version of the Bright Wizard. Ignite, the same as before, but let's read it just in case. Applies an alignment to target enemy for 15 seconds. You generate 3 combustion and the target takes 8% spell attack power and 100 elemental damage every 3 seconds. Flaming Sword of Ruin. That one costs only 30 combustion, no cooldown, no cost. Deals 35% melee attack power, 469 corporeal damage to target enemy. 8 feet range. 8 feet range, the melee skills here. Unquenchable Thirst, same as before. Fire Gates, that's the root. Fuel for the Fire. Again, this is off the global cooldown, 2 seconds cooldown. Don't get confused, it's off the global cooldown, it has its own cooldown, so you can press that in something else. You take explosion damage and gain 20 combustion, so you can hurt yourself to gain combustion. Breath of Fire, 80 action points, 1.5 seconds cast. Castable while moving. Remember I said keep an eye on the tooltips because it gives you useful information like that. Applies an alignment up to 9 enemies within 30 feet in front of you for 9 seconds. For the duration, the target takes 10% spell attack power, 132 elemental damage, and you gain 2 combustion every 3 seconds. Vigilance. Or is this? Ability no cost instant 60-second cooldown. You gain a buff. For 7 seconds, that reduces all incoming damage by 50% and all outgoing damage by 90%. So this is your detaunt. Detaunts here sometimes work like this. You receive 50% less, but you're doing 90% less as well. So the reason for that is they didn't want people to debuff the guy on your left and nuke the guy on your right. So if you're going to get debuff somebody, for you not to receive damage, that's just for saving your ass. You can't use it that way. I don't know how that's going to work on a 2v1 fight. You know what I mean? But for a group fight, makes sense. But for smaller group, just don't use it, I suppose. So the tactics are racial, so the same, but just to refresh our memories, Emperor's Word. Whenever you use basic attack, you will gain a 400 absorb for 3 seconds. Okay, this is, they gotta fix this, I think, or it's intentional. Here's 400 absorb, here is 300 absorb. It's different. So it's Emperor's Word. So these two are different. I don't know if it's my mistake or intentional, but this one, whenever you use the basic attack, all group mates with 100 feet of you, with this tactic gain 300 absorb shield for 3 seconds. This one, whenever you use the basic attack, you will gain a 400 absorb shield for 3 seconds. So this is for you personally. The Pyromancer, with the DPS, this is also DPS, with this one applies shields to all the group mates. The Arsonist applies a shield to himself or herself. Okay, so it's not a mistake. This is personal shield. The Pyromancer is doing group shields. Sigmar's Favored. Whenever you receive a direct heal, you will also be healed for 120 plus 8% wounds. I'm assuming that is something that amplifies healing. Embrace the Flames. Unquenchable Fury is now applied to all group mates with 100 feet. And Quest Ages, Explosion and Blast now deal 50% less damage to you and your group mates. Defensive for yourself. Arsonist can equip long swords with a free offhand. Disengage, you still get your disengage, knock yourself backwards away from the enemy. Morale 2, Broad Swings. You gain a buff for 10 seconds. Your single target abilities will target 2 additional enemies within 15 feet in front of you. Explosive Impact, Morale 3. You gain a buff for 10 seconds. Whenever you hit a target with a single target ability, you will deal 10% ranged attack power and 150 corporeal damage and 10% spell attack power and 150 elemental up to 24 enemies within 20 feet. Same as before. And Frenzied Slaughter, that's new. Morale 4. All group mates within 100 feet gain a buff for 15 seconds, plus 40% outgoing damage and 15% reduced cooldowns for the duration. Ooh, that is nice. 40% more damage for all group members and 50% reduced cooldowns. Who needs Whispering Winds? when you get that one. Of course, it is a morale 4, so you're going to have full bar of adrenaline to use it. But it is 15 seconds of plus 40% damage when you use cooldowns. And the thing is, you can do that, right? Even if you do die in 5 seconds, that still is on your team and have the benefit. Master of Sparks. Sparking swings will deal additional 75% more damage. That is your basic attack. So it increases the basic attack damage. Here we have stats as usual: willpower, weapon skill, initiative, toughness. Tempered Blast. Blast now deals 35% additional damage, and you can buff it all the way to 70. Just to remind you, Blast is a debuff that lasts for 4 seconds and stacks 10 times. At the end of the duration, the enemy takes 8% spell power and 90 elemental. So increasing the damage by 70%, it's not a bad thing. Fleet-footed. Career tactic. Your base movement speed is increased by 15%. Your mass is decreased by 1. Mass. Mass is the statistic that says how, let's say, likely you are to be CC, to be crowd control. If you have 5, it's less likely things will last a lot longer. For example, if a route is 10 seconds, you have mass 5. This is an example, not accurate numbers. You have mass 5, instead of 10 seconds slow, you get 5. If you have mass 0, you get full 10 seconds. You have 1 is 8 seconds. So that's what mass does. So it gives you speed, but makes you more easy to be crowd controlled. More stats here. Strength, intelligence, ballistics. Cauterize. No cost, no cooldown, 100 feet, but it does cost combustion. Dispel 1 enchantment from and apply 1 stack of purity to target enemy. Dispel 1 affliction from yourself. Dispel 2 stacks of blast from yourself. Apply 2 stacks of purity to yourself. So I'm not sure about all those purities, blasts, and this and that, but you debuff and buff other people. You just switch. Good with buff. Good with bad buffs, I suppose. It can be upgraded. Now we'll remove up to 3 stacks of blast from you and apply 3 stacks of purity. Hold on, what is purity? Do we have purity somewhere? Purity. No, I don't have it here on my list. But we'll find it at some point. But it's clear that you help yourself. I mean, removing stacks of blast, you take less damage from your own spell. Next line, spontaneous combustion. Sparkling swing now has 75 feet range and will generate 3 combustion. Sparkling swing. So that's also buffing your main ability that you do damage and you generate action points. Improve vigilance. Vigilance now only reduces your outgoing damage by 75%. That is your detaunt, which reduces incoming damage by 50% and outgoing by 90%. Agility, wounds, detonate. Requires ignite on target. So you gotta use that one first. Dispels ignite from the target to apply a 12-second cripple to the target and up to 8 additional enemies within 20 feet. For the duration, target takes 5% spell attack power and 62 corporeal damage, and you gain 1 combustion every 3 seconds. And that can also be linked to unlock a tactic, career tactic. Ignite can now be cast on the target with detonate. Detonate no longer dispels ignite and will deal 7% and 80% elemental damage to the initial target for each stack of blast they have. It's a nice upgrade because you do create a lot of blast debuffs. Pretty much everything applies that debuff. Tactic, Rancid Breach. Breach of Fire now deals 14% spell attack power, 187 corporeal damage to enemies on cast. Okay. Burnout, Morale 2. You gain 100 combustion and take explosion damage. Easy way to fill your combustion, but you take some damage. Fire Reserves, another tactic. Blast that you apply will now generate 3 combustion per stack whenever it expires. Blast expires every 4 seconds. Also, you can have a lot of stacks. There's abilities that generate 2, 3, 4 stacks and so on and so forth. Ruination, if I said that correctly. Passive. Flaming Sword of Ruin will now refund 2 combustion. It's 30 combustion and it refunds 2. Okay. Cascading Fire Cloak. 50 action points. No cooldown, instant applied self. You gain a blessing for 10 seconds. For the duration, whenever you use Sparks of Flaming Sword or Flaming Sword of Ruin, you will gain 1 stack of enhanced armor. For the duration, whenever an enemy hits you with an ability, you will gain 1 stack of reduced armor, and up to 9 enemies within 30 feet of you will take 5% spell attack power and 57 elemental damage. It does have 1 second internal cooldown. Ooh. So the arsenal so far, we got, I think we're just going to be playing with the basic attack, more or less, amplifying its damage, applying stacks of blast. We got some range skills as well, but I think this is where the slight difference on the gameplay comes in, where you cast this blessing on yourself for 10 seconds, you get more armor, then you go in and you use either Sparkling Swing or Flaming Sword of Ruin, depending how much combustion you have or if you need action points. And every time you do your damage with your spells, every time you get hit, then you lose a little bit of armor that you gain from the buff, and 9 enemies take 5% spell power plus 57 every other second because it has an internal cooldown. So I suppose you're hitting there, swinging or something, saying, hit me, and you deal more damage. Going further down on this tree, Explosive Force, career tactic again. Whenever you take explosion damage, all group mates and up to 9 enemies within 30 feet of you also take, explosion damage. Interesting, because we apply the Bright Wizard so far, anything he does applies blast to himself or herself, group mates, and enemies. So that runs out every 4 seconds, right? So you have stacks running from the first spell to the second spell to the third spell, and you always have that. I suppose you are a walking explosion with this tactic after a little bit, and you're going to be taking that damage anyways, so you might as well hit everybody around you. So if you combine this tactic along with Cascading Fire Cloak, you can stay a bit further out of combat, cast a couple of spells like Ignite, then run in, use the attack and Fire Cloak for 10 seconds, DPS, get hit, explode around you, let them hit you to do more damage, and when the cooldowns are off, right, you retreat, because you're going to be taking blast damage, enemy damage, you retreat out a little bit, reset the cooldowns, do some long-range spells where the healers keep you alive, and then you go back in again to, utilize the blast you've built and that. Because I remember in the early stages, the set is going to be a class, a hard specialization on the Bright Wizard that it's going to be melee, but you got to go in for a little bit and then you have to come out. A lot of classes do that. Build some sort of mechanic, go close range, deal the damage, come out. The new Chopper is like that a little bit. So they go in, melee range, they do what they do, they use their mechanic and the resources, then back up, and they switch to bow, and they start shooting to build up the mechanic again. So they go in and out of combat. Not in and out of combat, they go in and out of close range. So they switch between those two mechanics. And that tactic just made it pretty clear how you can do this. So Explosive Force with Blast and Cascading Fire Cloak. One possible build I just thought about as we go through this, but I find it interesting because this class, this specialization, you can fight long range with some dots, and you can go close as well without fearing. Now I'm range, I can get close. So next one, World on Fire. Hold on, let me just put some. Take the points out of here. Let's put a couple of points randomly so we can go a little bit further down. There we go. So World on Fire is a passive. Whenever you Breath of Fire. Detonate or ignite deals damage. You have 10% chance to gain a stack of a buff that lasts for 5 seconds. Each stack grants 1% increased outgoing damage and 1% increased incoming damage, maximum of 10 stacks. Alright, so Breath of Fire, 3 spells. If they're dealing damage, you have a 10% chance. If you max it, it's 30% chance. Increase your outgoing damage and increase your incoming damage. Well, I suppose you have a good healer. 3% is not, doesn't sound that much. Extra crit, passive of course, you can increase your critical hit chance by 6. Bleed Fire, new tactic. Breath of Fire, Detonate, Fury Blast, and Rain of Fire will now hit up to 24 enemies. Flaming Sword of Ruin will now hit up to 8 enemies. Within 30 feet of the target, deals 50% less damage. I don't care. I don't care. Because I have a single target, which is Sparkling Swing basic attack. We also buff it to do max this out. Will now deal 225% extra damage. So you have a spammable, no cost, 8 feet, single target, and you generate action points. And then Flame Sword of Ruin, which you can hit 8 enemies and deal 50% less damage. Suppose this is the AoE to apply Blast and remove combustion, so you don't blow yourself up. So dealing less damage, I don't see a problem. Emperor's Champion, Morale 3. You get a buff for 20 seconds. For the duration, you gain 250 ballistics, intelligence, and strength. Verge of Victory. This is the one where you land a killing blow, you will gain 20 adrenaline per second for 8 seconds. And whenever a group mate within 100 feet lands a killing blow, you will gain 5 adrenaline. So either way, you or your group mates, you keep building your morale mechanic up. Burning Step. Instant 20 seconds cooldown. Cost 25 combustion. Movement skill. You gain 100% dodge and 100% movement speed for 2 seconds. You also gain 3 stacks of blast. I suppose a get out of jail card, 100% dodge, pretty much immunity to ranged. Trailblazer. For an extra point, you can get that one. The cooldown of Burning Step is reduced by 8 seconds. So it goes down to 12. I'm trying to think if it's worth a point for 2 seconds. I'm not sure what you can do in 2 seconds. Oppressive Heat. Passive. You gain Sagacity equal to 5% of your ranged attack power. Sagacity, just to remind everybody and myself, reduces enemy corporeal, elemental, and spiritual resistance. So passively you gain 20% elemental resistant debuff. Hey Lord, this abomination, which one? You're talking about Interbellum, Return of Reckoning, Flame of War, which server? Because we're talking about Interbellum at the moment. The game, what? Warhammer Online. No, it's still alive. Actually has 2 live servers now. Private servers too. Return of Reckoning, Flame of War. And the one we're looking in today is the upcoming one, Interbellum. Yep, there's two of them, and the third one's coming up. Yep. So, but this one is totally different from the other, so we're just having a look on the classes, how they've changed them. So, next one, Burning Head, same as the Pyromancer, Bright Wizard. Summons a Burning Head, which charges forwards, affecting up to 24 allies and 96 enemies every second, with a 3-second effect within 20 feet of its location. During that, allies gain a 50% critical chance and 15 adrenaline per second. Enemies take 10% spell attack power and 150 elemental damage every second and gain 15 adrenaline per second. So you also give damage and increase their morale as well. Scorched Earth consumes all combustion, deals 6% melee attack power, 8 corporeal damage per 10 combustion consumed, up to 9 enemies within 30 feet of you. Augment does not consume combustion. Augment, you can get augment from, let's say, a Rune Priest. They have the ability to augment allies and their abilities. I don't know if the Warrior Priest can do that, but we'll see. But I remember the Rune Priest has augments for the group mates. Supernova. This is the Arsonist Zerg Busting ability. So let's see. Deal 10% spell attack power and 50 elemental damage up to 24 enemies within 30 feet of you every second. Each enemy hit will increase your outgoing damage by 10%, up to a maximum of 100 stacks. Holy shit. Effect is dispelled when channel ends. This ability deals no damage to targets that have cover from you. Augment 100% pushback immunity. So it's a 5-second channel. So 5 seconds, you have 100% pushback immunity. You can't be stopped doing it as long as you get it augmented. And every time somebody hits you in with AoE, with whatever, your damage goes up by 10%. But you deal no damage if they have cover. Reminder, cover means they are not standing behind a tank. If they're standing behind a tank with hold the line, you do 0 damage. So positioning, punting tanks, whatever, it's crucial to have these abilities working properly. We'll see how that's gonna, honestly, this thing with the cover, I'm really curious how it's gonna work in the game, because I can imagine, like, I don't know, you're trying to go into a keep, right? The tanks are in front, you're behind them. So you gotta see how that actually is gonna work there. Anyways, that's the Arsonist. This is the melee version of the Bright Wizard. That's a DPS. Pyromancer is a ranged one. Arsonist is a melee. Interesting mechanics here as well. You can fight from range a little bit, but mainly go in and build up, blast on yourself, and then explode, constantly explode to hit everybody around you. Once you run out of that build up, you go a little bit further back again, you build it up, and you go in and out of range, and you start doing that. Very interesting. And it's nice to see a melee spellcaster as well. Then we go to the third hard specialization. Small reminder, you cannot pick skills from all 3 trees. You pick one and you play it. You can't mix and match. So Fire Warden is an offensive support. Let's see how many skills that have similar one. Pyroclastic, Fireball, same as the Pyromancer. Burning Iron, that's new. 15 Combustion. It deals 90% spell attack power to 63 elemental damage to the target and applies 1 stack of reduced weapon skill. Unquenchable Thirst the same. Firecades, the root is the same. Ignite, yes. Cauterize the same. Smoke Screen the same as the Pyromancer. Shield tactic the same as the Arsonist. Reminder is not the same as the Emperor Ward. Emperor Ward shields the whole group. Arsonist and Fire Warden just themselves. The same, they can apply stuffs. Return Life. Elven classes, they haven't released them yet. It's the next one on the list. Elves and Dark Elves. They haven't finished the builder yet. So we review every set they release every other week. So they're working on it. They are releasing the races the way they were voted on Discord. So people said we want to see Dwarves, Greenskins, Chaos, Empire, Elves, and Dark Elves in that order. So they're working on them in that order for us. Right, so Return to Life. Morale 1. So the Bright Wizard get a res. Return target group mate back to life at the location of the corpse with 2000 health and no other resources. Cannot be used on corpses with Fulcron. So Morale 1, Bright Wizard can resurrect people. Focus Mind is the usual. Explosive Impact, yes. Unleash Winds. Up to 96 enemies within 20 feet of the location you select are knocked straight up in the air, the same as the Pyromancer. Red Tide, Pyroblastic Surge now deals 50% additional damage. That is your basic attack. Still range, the same as the Pyromancer. Don't forget, the differences between some of these classes are tiny on the gameplay. So Fire Warden offensive support is more like the Pyromancer there. We'll see what usually the change on the gameplay happen somewhere below the middle. So we'll see how this is different from this. We already see has a Morale 1 res, right? Instead of a disengage, they can throw themselves away, at least so far. Hi, Tibbs. So Red Tide deals 50% more damage. Here we have the typical statistic increase. Firestarter. Blast stacks causes allies to gain 1 adrenaline per second per stack. Nice little passive. Because don't forget, when we do damage, we apply blast, DPS, debuff, but that's also applied to your allies. I really want to see how this is going to work. I mean, the healers must be having a field day with Bright Wizards, killing their own people, applying debuffs everywhere that explode. Well, Shadow Warrior will not be able to move in stealth. All right, he has a static stealth. The Dog stealth will work the same as the Witch Elf. I am more interested on the Shaman stealth, to be honest, Optimus. The Shaman stealth is going to be very interesting because the Shaman can, as far as I understood, he can DPS in stealth without breaking it. So it's going to be hilarious to see a whole warband of stealth Shamans DPSing from stealth. It depends. It depends how exactly that's going to work on the field. That's why I've said, like, some of these things look interesting, but I don't know how that's going to work in the game. But we'll see. We'll see. But just a reminder, if anybody wants to learn more about this, everything is on my website. Everything that I have released is on my website, so you guys can go and have a look about all the new mechanics, classes, and all that. So that one can go up to 2. So they gain morale, our allies. Next line, what we got strength, intelligence, and ballistics. So just going to put some points to unlock the other lines. Fury Blast deals 21% spell attack power, 287 elemental damage up to 9 enemies within 30-foot area you select. Generates 2 combustion per enemy. It can be upgraded if you get it. Fireball has a 10% chance, and Rain of Fire has a 2% chance each time they deal damage to make the next Fiery Blast cast within 10 seconds to be instant cast. So for 2.5 seconds to instant every time you do Fireball or Rain of Fire. Okay, that can be useful. But we'll see, Optimus, we'll see how the Shadow Warrior is going to work with that once they release the Elves, because there might be a tactic or anything else make it movable or deal extra damage, or I don't know, instant hit stealth. I don't know. We just have to wait. I'm assuming in a week or 2, the Elves will be out, so we can have a look. Melt Armor, that's a morale 1. Target enemy gains 4 stacks of reduced armor, so it's an armor debuff in a morale form. Firebrand, Burning Arrow now applies 1 stack of reduced block and 1 stack of reduced hardiness. So that's a debuff tactic. Fireball now has 1.5 seconds cast time from 3 seconds. Deals 50% less damage and generates 15 combustion. So less damage, faster. Suppose it's half the time, half the damage, so you can cast the same amount, about 2 fireballs in the same amount of time you cast 1. Damage is there, but you get the 15% combustion, but you're not as bursty, like massive blocks of damage. Yeah, well, you guys have to wait until maybe 1 or 2 weeks when they release the Elves, and we'll see exactly what's happening there. Where was I? Oh, the tactics here. Fireball, more stats. Hardened casting passive, 15% pushback immunity, which you can upgrade 3 times. So you can gain 50% pushback immunity passively. Detonate, we already seen it, but what the hell. If you put Ignite on the target, which is up here, it's an insta-cast dot. You dispel Ignite from the target and you apply a 12-second cripple to the target and up to 8 additional enemies within 20 feet. For the duration, target takes 5% spell attack power, 62 corporeal damage, and you gain 1 combustion every 3 seconds. And that will also unlock your new tactic if you want to. Fan the Flames. Ignite now can now be cast on a target with Detonate. Detonate no longer dispels Ignite, and it will deal 7% and 80 elemental damage to initial target for each stack of blast they have. So it increases the damage without removing the debuff. Burnout, another morale 2. Gain 100% and 100 combustion and take explosion damage. That's the same in every class here. Explosive Exercise. Is that exercise? Yes. Passive. Whenever you deal periodic damage, you have a 33% chance to give 1 action point to all group mates within 100 feet. So you can get 100% chance to give 1 action points to all group mates within 100 feet. I know 1 action point may be laughable, like every time I deal dot, but don't forget all your skills that you have apply blast, which is a dot. So you can have 10 to 15 blasts running in any given time. They stack up to 10 times, and this offensive support build has a lot of AoE. So you could be applying that to 20, 30 people. So that's a lot of action points accumulating, coming their way. So 1, it may sound silly, but it's really not when you're talking about hitting 10, 20 people with 10 stacks each. So it's not that bad. Playing with fire applies an alignment to the target for 10 seconds. Whenever the target is healed, you will deal 30% spell attack power and 183 elemental damage to the healer, and you generate 5 combustion. So this is the same one as on the Pyromancer. So, you know, apply this to the front line. Okay, it costs 50 action points. You have 300. You can generate action points with your basic attack. No cooldown, 1.5 second cast. You just go, you know, tank, 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 and let the healer heal them. He does an AoE heal to 4 tanks and gets 4 times 13% of your spell attack power and 183 damage. So it's going to be interesting also to see how this is going to work for the healers. Because we've seen healers that they have to run around, healers that have to DPS to heal, even from a range they have to DPS to heal. There's no longer a sit at the back and just spam AoE, I'm safe, because this can actually kill somebody. So that also remains to be seen how it's going to work, how effective it's going to be or not. Exquisite Firecraft, career tactic. Cauterize will now also dispel 1 blasting from the enemy. Cauterize effect that targeted yourself now apply to your defensive target instead. So you get a debuff that deals damage to you. You can transfer it. You can transfer it to a tank, for example, instead of yourself. Kind of funny. Bleed Fire. We've seen this before on the Pyromancer as well. Breath of Fire, Detonate, Fury Blast, and Rain of Fire will now hit up to 24 enemies, so it becomes bigger AoE. Flaming Sword of Ruin will now hit up to 8 enemies within 30 feet of the target, but deals 50% less damage. I feel that tactic is kind of good if you want to use everything else except Flaming Sword. Where is Flaming Sword? I don't think this guy has Flaming Sword. He doesn't have Flaming Sword. But it's the same tactic because the racial career tactics. Flaming Sword is here. So this really affects pretty much everything else, making it a bigger AoE. And also on the Arsonist, we've seen that because the Flaming Sword takes out combustion, we only have 100, that's like 3 attacks, and then you have to rebuild it. Doing less damage, it doesn't matter. You just want to use it to remove your combustion so you don't blow yourself up and apply blast, the debuff, to everybody around you. So, but you buff all the other spells. So I think it's worth it if you go down that path. Rain of Fire. Costs 60 combustion. 6-second channel. Deal 6% spell attack power, 87 elemental damage every second, up to 9 enemies within a 30-foot area you select. Okay, so Rain of Fire, the known spell from the original game, only this time is not spammable. It hits less people. So it just remains to see how effective this is going to be to control your combustion below 89 so you don't take damage, but also high enough so you can keep casting things. Crackling Fire Razor. Gain 2 adrenaline per second while in combat. Ooh. So you can get that all the way to 10 adrenaline per second while in combat. Nice. Man, that's going to build massive morale. So your normal morale building plus 10 every second. Scorching Ignition, another career tactic. Ignite will now apply 1 stack of blast and 1 stack of reduced elemental resistance to the target each time it deals damage. So Ignite is a dot, you apply it, then you remove resistance and stuff. A date on the server? Unfortunately, no. Nope. I wish we did, but they don't give out dates, unfortunately. Emperor's Champion, you gain a buff for 20 seconds for the duration, gain 250 ballistics, 250 intelligence, 250 strength, morale 3, every class can have that. If I work alone, I'm not part of the server, I'm just a streamer interested in the game, so every time they release something new, I share it with you guys if you're not following it as close as I am. I mean, there's a team of, what, 5-6 people, I think, that they work on Interbellum. So, I don't know. It's not a big team. Dissipation Expert. Whenever you use an ability that removes a buff or debuff, you will gain 15 adrenaline per second for 3 seconds. Well, Fire Warden seems to now start working a lot with morals. Blinding Smoke, another passive. You have 10% chance whenever you critically hit an enemy to apply 1 stack of reduced dodge to them. Suppose you can buff that all the way up to 100%, so keep hitting people. I'm just showing the completed ones. We're missing the elves and the dark elves. So in a couple of weeks, we should have the next one. So we already covered dwarfs, greenskins, and chaos. They just released a couple of days ago, I think, the Empire one. So I had time today and jumped in to see it with you guys. Where were we? Stop, drop, and roll. 75 action points, 20-second cooldown. Applies a knockdown and unstoppable to the target. Unstoppable is the debuff, so it can be knocked down again. Knockdown prevents you all control of your character for 3 seconds. Unstoppable, application of knockdown and staggered for 30 seconds. So we get a knockdown, basically. Big tooltip. Burning Head the same as before. Shield of Anguish. I mean, some of these names are hard for me to say. Anyways, a Shield of Anxi. Costs 40 combustion. Applies a buff for 5 seconds and a blessing for 10 seconds to each groupmate within 100 feet. For the buff duration, groupmates and up to 9 enemies within 30 feet of them gain a stack of blast every second. For the blessing duration, groupmates gain 2000 elemental resistance. So basically, you cast this. All right, 20 seconds cooldown. You fill everybody with blast. Remember, blast does damage, but giving 2000 elemental damage to your friendlies, it means enemies take full damage, your friendlies take reduced damage. So we gotta use that one wisely. Taken, yes, we'll have a look if you want. Let me finish this. And Spreading Flames is the same Zerg Blasting ability as we've seen on the Pyromancer, exactly the same. But since I like it, I'll read it again. It costs half your action points, that's 150. It takes 2 seconds to cast. You apply a debuff to the target enemy for 2 seconds. You deal 6%, I'm assuming spell attack power, and 20 elemental damage every 1 second, so you deal damage for 2 seconds. And then at the end of the duration, that applies stage 2, where a debuff, that debuff goes to up to 6 people around the first one, 20 feet. And after 2 seconds, they take damage to blow up, and then to another 6 people. So if everybody's clustered, they can get 2, 3, 4, 5 stacks and build up all the way up to 10, increasing the damage. And that concludes the Bright Wizard, which has DPS, specialization, Pyromancer on the left tree. You can only pick one of the trees, you can mix and match. Arsonist, another DPS, middle tree, melee, with a little bit of ranged, where you basically run in, explode yourself, take some damage, steal damage to everybody around you, go out, rebuild your mechanic, go back in. The Pyromancer is the classic long range type of thing. And Fire Warden is an offensive support, which is pretty much the same as a Pyromancer, with the difference that this guy builds massive morale, and he also has a little bit more buffs and debuffs to help out. It seems like the offensive and defensive supports are going to be used because they really amplify the damage you do, or they give you a lot of morals, a lot of AP, and they're really useful. At least one per group, even in Warbands, I think it was going to be needed for pretty much all the classes.